My mom and dad came to the United States around 1978.
My parents were born in Taiwan.
Both my parents are from China.
I feel like we had a pretty typical Filipino-American experience.
In middle school, I noticed that people liked it when I made Asian jokes. So they felt like it was okay to make Asian jokes towards me too.
I would get like the occasional, calls like the ching chong ching.
A classmate of mine that I was working with, he actually had the nerve to call me a coconut.
People would, manipulate their eyes and make fun of me.
Brown on the outside and white on the inside.
I think like when my parents first moved, the first night after they came down and their car had been keyed because there weren't any other Asians.
These incidents, they definitely have been across the board. Actually, my brother-in-law is Vietnamese. He's not even Chinese, but and he's been yelled at just for being Asian in the in the stores, in the supermarket. Here, I clearly see that the function of the racism from top down, from the federal government down, is a way to deflect blame from the government. So a way to deflect blame because the federal government did not act quickly enough. They dismantled all the, procedures to deal with pandemic in our country. They, sent back a lot of testing from WHO. And so there's a lot of things that the government could have done in the beginning.
I feel like this is how the United States works. It has to always have an enemy. It always has to blame a people. It always has to blame something. So in the case of COVID-19, there needed to be someone to blame.
I feel like a lot of people wouldn't feel empowered to be prejudiced against Asians if our president hadn't say Kung Flu or China virus. That definitely fostered a lot of anti-Asian sentiment.
I think this current administration and this president, in all his mixed messaging about race, is very clear that he doesn't care. He doesn't really think about the consequences of his choices. And that very much includes how he's dealt with this crisis and how he places blame on everyone else but himself.
Somebody that grew up in this neighborhood posted something on Nextdoor. Things like mothballs, cayenne pepper, or other similar things only push the squirrel somewhere else. So it doesn't really solve the problem. It just makes it someone else's problem. When you shoot a squirrel, it stops that one and also stops it from breeding to create more squirrels year after year. These squirrels are like the Chinese. They just keep coming. It's not enough for one or two people to be shooting them. We all need to do our part to make a difference. Something that happened in the wake of that person posting that was I saw so many Asian Americans from Dallas were banding together and were oh, we're going to sue him for hate speech and we're going to throw him in jail. And I was like, okay, do whatever you want. But all of these people didn't do anything when George Floyd died.
Model minority is, it's a strategy that creates a wedge between Asians and other people of color.
I see it as racist too, because then it's used, that myth is used to say, well, look at Asians, they succeeded, they work hard, why can't other populations work hard as well?
When you go to the Philippines, you kind of see it in the kind of entertainment industry. The favor that they have towards lighter skinned Filipinos is in your face all the time. And I think because of that colorism within the Filipino community, I think you'll see a certain anti-Blackness.
My mom said that she saw someone saying that Black people are just not as smart as Asians, and they just fundamentally aren't as smart. And I was like, oh, that's disgusting.
Just to kind of give you an example of how that internal racism works. And so I was working at a restaurant. This was in New York City. I worked at this restaurant called Zen Palette. And at that restaurant, the kitchen workers or the prep cooks were Latino, right? And then the waiters or the main cooks were usually Chinese. A lot of us weren't paid minimum wage. We weren't paid overtime. And so when I went to organize, I asked, I tried to ask everyone if they wanted to stand up for their rights. I asked the Latino workers there. And so I started to unite with them. And, we started this process to form a lawsuit against the owners for not paying our wages. And I remember the Chinese workers basically came and told me, they're like, why are you selling out our people? You're stabbing us in the back, you're going against us. And so then I had to tell them, first and foremost, that I am also a worker and I'm also being, exploited.
It's just a very frustrating thing to see minorities not stick up for other minorities, and I want that to change.
It's not asking for privileges, right, for just a group of people, but we need to recognize our commonality and fight for a common need.
Because this is a long fight, but I feel like as long as people can stay committed and stay in it together, we can win this.